It's Monday, everybody.
Yeah. Man, how was your weekend, Andrew?
Good. I went back to Vegas Thursday night. Jet Suite X, of course. And I had a buddy there who was there for NAB, my buddy Ken, who you met, and we did a helicoptered into Grand Canyon, landed in the base of the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
Kind of stood there. They did like a champagne thing. I watched. It's like cool, in the middle of Grand Canyon. Cool. All right. Then we got back on the helicopters and we flew out over Grand Canyon, and then we went to landed, like I think it was like Arizona border or whatever, and got out, and they loaded us into this big, huge, long monster truck that went on this whole fast obstacle course. Got out of that, got into a van, went up the road, got out, and we had ATVs, and then drove ATVs through the desert. And then got back in the van and went back, had lunch, and came home.
Maybe did I miss what the project this was for?
The project was fly a helicopter into the Grand Canyon,
Have a champagne
ATVs,
test.
Okay.
surprise monster truck trip. So that was the project.
It's a pretty great project.
Yeah, my buddy said, "Hey, I want to go do this thing. You want to go do this? Go do the Grand Canyon thing." I'm like, "Cool, yeah, cool. Like, yeah, sounds cool." I've been in helicopters and stuff before. It's like, whatever. It's like, sure, whatever. It'll make you happy, It was cool though.
That's fun, man. It's how weird that the moment I heard you say all that, I was just like, we live the kind of life where I'm like, so what project was this for?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was like, I'm like, okay, I'll pay for this, but normally you understand a TV network is usually involved, and there's a, but I'm like, it could be cool, So for my buddy, it was he was like a kid, because he doesn't get to do the same kind of adventures that I get to do normally. So it was fun. It was fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, very cool.
And then started working on a new software project and all that now that the Lucid Stream thing is done. So
Very cool. Is that
You
open
guys?
for testing? The Lucid Stream?
yeah, I'll if anybody's interested, I'll do a test flight or whatever, and
Yeah, pretty
put
cool.
it out there, or just put it up for free or whatever on the App Store, and just
Yeah.
make it available.
Nice.
Since it did its purpose, solved my needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys watch Game of Thrones?
Indeed.
I did.
I guess we could talk about it on the show.
Yeah, if we wanted to.
Not much to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
it's splitting my girlfriend
Man.
a constant table setting. know.
Those characters, they sure are back.
But also, it's been long enough. Like, if you're binging everything and went from the finale of last season to the premiere of this season, it's probably pretty boring. But I was glad to just touch base with everybody, and so
To be reminded, yeah.
because it was.
Well-
I was watching it with like a Discord group, like
Yeah.
text channel, and it was nice for everyone to remind me who everyone was.
I'll try to talk in code, but weird punch out where like 5 minutes from the end, it's like game-changing revelation. And then we hang around for 5 extra minutes, and then we punch out on, ooh, awkward that we're at the same party.
Well, and I think a lot of that is just because it's mirroring the episode that those two people,
right. Oh, maybe. Oh, okay.
That whole episode last night was mirroring that episode.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you watch the behind the scenes stuff after the video,
They explain all that?
It's really helpful because I would not have caught that, but it's pretty explicit in that this episode is mirroring that episode.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And also it's sort of like, I thought like at first, like, man, like we just a lot of table setting, but it's really like, hey, let's tell you what like the 5 big conflicts are going to be that we're going to jump right into the next episode, the next episode, the next episode, rather than spend 3 or 4 episodes establishing the conflicts and resolving half of them and leaving the half, for later on.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting chastised for talking.
Wow.
Let's get to the talking.
All right. Yeah. You good to do the show, Andrew?
Oh yeah.
All right, then.
Born to do this show.
Take it away in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to the Weird Things Podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Yes.
Mr. Bryce Castillo.
That's me.
It's the Holy Triumvirate.
That's all of us.
It's always been.
It's just like every episode ever.
They call us the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, that's right, because you never know who's missing.
You never. Yeah, that's right.
Gentlemen, it is exciting to be here on this tax day.
Yeah, man.
Is that today? Oh no, that's today.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Bryce is like, gotta run. And we get like the Flintstones.
You did file for an extension, right?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah,
it definitely, and you know what's funny? I saw someone mention that on Twitter. And I was like, that's not today.
You're like, I paid my taxes over a year ago.
I'm gonna say like Bryce's defense in court. Like, no,
that's not today.
not overdue. No. Bryce, have you seen a calendar?
It's Monday. It can't happen on a Monday.
Mondays are already bad. This would be like the worst Monday.
President
like
Garfield.
the Gregorian calendar, here's the thing, is that it wasn't adopted universally around the world. I don't know that we officially, and if Bryce finds some loophole, actually, like, well, we looked at the Constitution. We never adopted that calendar.
I got my big cuneiform slab on that. Actually, they're only 6 months in a year, so actually I'm pretty good.
Well, Bryce finds now he does seminars on tax dodging and stuff. So on the subject of that, what is the future of things like we talk about minimum basic income to the idea that we'll have so much abundance, we're just going to redistribute it. Although some economists might say it's a nice theory, but governments are large institutions, whatever you're going to call them, are very good at taking all of the surpluses and turning them into negatives.
I don't think that was a question, but that was a cool statement you just made.
Well, no. The question is what is the future of taxes?
Oh, the future of taxes.
Because
okay.
the preface
okay.
was, we have this. Oh no, we'll have this future where we're going to have all this. We're going to just be giving people money, and I'm like, I don't assume that because the past has shown that we have abundance, but then we tend to not.
Yeah, man, that's. I don't know any way to. I'm trying to think of the most futurist angle that would be fairly non-political. There has been some kooky outside theories. Was it the fair tax that was proposed, like replacing the income tax with a value-added tax? The idea was because there are problems with the income tax in that it disincentivizes making income, and it also incentivizes wasting your money if you're a business, because then that way you could show no profit and you have a bunch of new toys and look at that. Oh, you don't pay any income tax. The idea with the fair tax, this is what, 10 or 15 years ago, was lose the income tax and replace everything with a value-added tax where it would incentivize saving, because if you didn't spend the money, then you paid no taxes. And as you did spend money, you automatically paid taxes on that. So I don't know. I thought that was a clever idea, a consumption-based tax.
So I mean, I'm not an economist, but that sounds like expanding sales taxes, basically.
Yes. Yes, but by replacing, because right now we don't have a federal sales tax or what in Europe is called a value-added tax.
I see. Okay.
And so the idea was that everybody pays it and nothing is exempt. So you would pay it even on food.
Sure.
But the simplicity of it was very attractive to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's in the more conventional sort of approaches. That's one that's discussed. And let me explain. I'm not walking into this like, well, therefore I think we should. I have no idea. And if I'm going to say, well, here's the problem with this, then that's our job is to be devil's advocate of everything like this. I love the concept of basic income, but it's just one of these things. It's like, I'm like, but if you think about it, it's like, well, how do we prevent this from happening or other stuff? But you think about in a future where, robots and AI controlling thing and monitoring, theoretically being able to look at transactions and see what's going on, what is, what does that look like? What does it look like when, does the government come up with its own blockchain? We had some smaller, some other economies start looking at, we're going to do our own blockchain more for trying to basically because they have collapsing economies. But, do we move to a, blockchain sort of economy in the sense that, all dollars and money is like that?
AKA tracked in a public ledger?
Yeah, the idea that anytime you use public type money to do a transaction, you get the benefit of the courts and legal recourse and whatever whenever you have a problem with that, but also there's a tax that gets put into it and whatnot.
Do you think cash ever goes away entirely? Because we've had a backlash recently on a few businesses trying to go entirely cashless.
Yeah, so that's for those of you who haven't heard. So Amazon's had some of their pop-up stores where they've been experimenting with, and they've tried to go completely cashless. And the reason that they want to go cashless is that dealing with cash is an expense, and it also can be a security risk because if you have cash in a store, your vulnerability, because cash is so fungible, people want to steal it, they want to take it elsewhere. But also having to handle cash, move it from point A to point B is expensive. And Amazon was looking at the fact all our customers use credit cards or debit, so let's just go completely cashless. And that's happened in some stores. But then people have complained. It's hey, it's unfair to the poor, people who are cash dependent. Right. Now, an argument can be made yes, but anybody can use cash to buy a prepaid debit card. But that argument doesn't seem to go very far.
Yeah. So to my question, I'm assuming that we're all on the same on team.
Yeah, I don't think cash ever goes away.
I can see it as becoming increasingly challenging.
I think until there's a world where, we're kind of in a place right now where our phone is the center of our lives, right? But that's not a given. I think in a far enough future where there is some technology that is literally integral to your life, some sort of hey, we all have RFID wrist implants or something, right?
Sure.
I could see that where if we are a ubiquitously digital world, that would be a possibility. But I think just the need and the use cases for cash are still really valuable.
How valuable is the anonymous nature of cash? Because we were talking about blockchain currencies. If that's the case, that seems like it has all of the fungibility of cash, but none of the privacy. Where it's every single transaction forever is a part of the public record, right?
Yeah, I was trying to set the table by the way, Brian, explaining the whole Amazon store, not avoid your question. As far as do we get rid of cash, but there's an incentivization for some places to get rid of it. There's incentivized if you're a business. If I go somewhere and I'm selling goods, let's say if I was at a trade show or conference or whatever, I don't want to have to carry. I don't want to deal with cash. And yeah, there are transaction fees. I get this. I don't want to deal with it. The only time I deal with cash is tips. It's the only reason I ever carry cash with me is to give tips out. Other than that, I could not tell you how much cash I have in my wallet right now because I just use my card.
Yeah, I also, when we're out and about, oftentimes I don't want to hang around to get someone's attention to pay for the tab or whatever. Sure. There is something to be said about just dropping a couple of 20s and leaving.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's really fairly little I could think of that is cash only.
Yeah, I don't think we will get rid of it. I think there's always going to be a place for something like that because, and we have some people point out in the chat room too, when the power goes out,
sure.
The
banks,
there's
bank holidays, on the weekends, try getting anything done on that.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, there is entire times in everybody's lives and an entire preponderance of times where just internet or telecommunications aren't available.
Right.
And you have to have something that at least, of course, the dollar's backed by only faith, but in and of itself, money is worth the amount of money is perceived to be. This is wisdom from Brian.
Yes. We all believe,
what,
you can. There are higher end things, but we all believe money has value.
Correct. Yeah. Whether anybody's there to assure us that it has value or not, like two people in the woods meet and exchange money. That money has value, whether or not anybody knows about it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Like I think about the other time I have cash is like if I'm going to go out to eat with some people and I know it's going to be a group, I Venmo and these things, they help, but sometimes it's just a pain in the ass. Like, I'm going to Venmo you this, whatever, just to have cash and throw it into the table.
That's the best, dude. That's the best, is being able to just, throw your part into the pot and not have to.
Yeah, right.
Oh, beep, 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 beep.
The laundromat that I go to, not all of their machines have card readers, and their the wash and fold service is cash only. They don't take cards for wash and fold.
Wild.
Which is probably could be a fraud thing, could be a
100%
thing.
100%. Yeah. That is a big thing. If you're involved in some sort of illegal, like if you start looking at, not all laundromats are run by drug dealers. Drug dealers own a lot of laundromats.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Because it's you can say what your numbers were, how much money you took in, and whatever, and people are like, oh, okay, works for that. It's funny, like in my family, like our default, Christmas gift or whatever is because, it's like a lot of people like, we don't need any more stuff. Don't buy me anything because I don't need anything right now. But if I do need something, I'm going to go to Amazon. So ours is, Amazon gift cards. That's our currency. Is like, here's this permission to buy something from Amazon. We'll just send you a gift card.
Amazon is the one gift card that I'm okay with because it's the everything store. And there's okay, I love you, Mom and Dad, if you're listening to the podcast. but like they got me a gift card for a bike supply place.
No, a bike place.
A bike place, right? Which again, I like bikes.
You
right?
love the bike, yeah.
But that's just restrictive enough that I'm never I have a tendency to only think of it at certain times that I still haven't used it, and is increasingly just sitting there, and at some point I'm terrified it's going to get lost, and then it's like,
or it could expire.
Oh, please don't say that.
But, I mean, that's true. Like even some of these prepaid debit cards can expire.
Yeah,
they don't always do, and
or through no fault of your own, somebody sneaky could happen upon. They might be compromised or become compromised and get drained.
Those prepaid cards are basically cash because they're not tied to an ID. If you activate them,
I used to do a show on a network, and for Christmas they gave everyone $100 Apple cards, and by the time I got to use it, balance was zero. So,
oh no!
I the most generous interpretation. I mean, why would you do that on purpose? But I think somewhere there was a fraud. Yeah, and then by the time I got to use it, it was all drained. So that was crazy.
So weird.
Yeah, that's I could see some sort of future where it's like you want to tip somebody and you give them like remember the coin, the card that was like the
there's going to be all your cards on there.
Yeah,
I think they still have like 10 of my bucks.
2017 coin
I think they got some of my money too here.
Yeah. No, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yeah, it was one of these things where the technology just so outpaced what they were trying to do there, that eventually reached a point where by the time they were able to ship that, it was like, nah, we don't really need this solution anymore.
Right.
There was, I suppose this is a money-related weird things emerging technology story. But full disclosure, this is also a brand new sponsor on the Modern Rogue. So this, they're a sponsor, which is how it came to my attention. But because I wanted to make sure that they were legit, I poked around a bit to make sure. But Pedal is a new type of credit card specifically targeting people trying to restore their credit or establish credit. Because if you have no credit, if you've never had a card, and there are adults who go, well into their 40s and so on, without ever having a card, and it's very hard to get started because they go to FICO, they go to the credit unions, the credit brokers, and then they say, "What's this guy worth?" And they're like, nothing.
Yeah,
and so you have to do like prepaid schemes and all that. Whereas nowadays, how much has changed in just the last 10 years? It's not weird to have all of your banking information immediately available online, and it's not weird to tie those with different services, whether to make deposits or whatever.
Sure.
So basically, instead of doing FICO at all, you basically just you log in and you authenticate and you allow them to see your bank records on all your accounts, and then they're like, yeah, look, here's steady income for this many months, and I don't care what you do, who you are, what cards you had, how many bankruptcies. All we see is that you definitely have money, and we will extend to you this amount of credit. And then, the crazy part is they want you to go ahead and set it up for auto pay. So it just basically is a credit card that acts like a debit card, so that you never have to pay any fees or anything.
That's helpful because you have, we'll pass laws to sort of stop like what we call predatory lending or whatever like that, which seem very good intentions, but then you find out that you're cutting off large amounts of people from lending,
Right.
and that's,
Also,
it's
petalcard.com/rogue if you dig it.
But I had a former coworker, and she was a real grown up. She was had just recently moved to the area because she was a contractor, and she was looking for a home, and she had not so great credit, and she had a kid, and so she was telling me about like it's a long process to build or repair your credit, and so that's an interesting thing where they can look at your day to day or your month to month expenses and see stuff like that. It reminds me a lot of like when I had applied for my apartment, they were like, hey, you have to prove how much income you have so that we can, be cool, renting to you. And I had to be like, well, here are some deposits that I could show you, because it's like, that's really all I could do. I don't have
It
a
is
lot of
pretty
credit.
wild. There's that kind of like, hey, how about you whip out that account balance?
Right.
And then you just go beep, bop, boop, and then just let them scroll. And,
Yeah.
and it's increasingly casual like that, where, when we applied, we just applied for a loan because we have to build this warehouse, and they're all like, just, send us pictures of your financials. And so it's,
Right.
I don't know, it's so weird.
It's weird. And then as we are moving to more digital payment stuff, like the example with my apartment, they kind of didn't know what they were looking at because we were doing a lot of Square Cash stuff.
Right.
And that doesn't look like a direct deposit. That looks like an ACH, a transaction refund. Or,
Right.
not a payment. Right. And so they're like, is this money? I don't know. This is a lot of money, but I don't know what this is. So it's weird, the like analog method of just giving someone hard data and changing technology in that regard.
Yeah. Speaking of changing technology, this will be a hard left turn, but I saw a news story today that I'm going to guess maybe you already saw, Andrew, but I'm going to do that thing where you refer to scientists as they. They.
peaceful in their towers of ivory.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I
The
don't have the
invisible
story.
hand of
Yeah,
society.
Yeah, we'll see if Bryce could do some fast Googling here. But news story was scientists. Scientists have figured out a graphene-based foam that remains spongy and springy at temperatures to the temperature of liquid helium, like negative 200 plus degrees.
Celsius.
Celsius. Yeah.
Okay.
Like close to absolute zero.
Yeah,
So
negative 269.15 degrees Celsius.
which I thought it'd be fun to speculate. The article says this can have applications in space materials. And so, like, what do you think those would be? I would imagine you would want the ability to soften docking procedure and to set up. I don't know.
One of the things that happens when you get a press release is you'll get like, it might be some of the scientists who worked on it who are trying to go like, oh, we could use it for this. And then the university that worked on it, like, oh, great, we'll see this. Sometimes they know least. Even the researchers who made it were the ones who are the least to know really what the applications are for. There might be specific grants that it was made for that. That certainly could be it. But, one of the applications that I would think would be, one of the ways you get things super, super cold is you build a refrigerator, you take all the heat out, and you take whatever's in there, and then you refrigerate that with another kind of refrigerator that's really good at taking heat out at that level, and 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 until eventually, you're at a point where you're able to get something super, super friggin' cold. But, as you pointed out, like, materials behave differently the colder they get. Mm-hmm. So There could be a lot of applications and semiconductor, different type of technologies for trying to chill things at a super level because there's a predictability about how the material behave.
I guess this is I think I assume what we need to do is figure out what is foam used for at normal temperatures, and I'm thinking about
insulation.
Yes, and what things you need to do in your super cold refrigerators, you need to isolate them from vibration.
Yeah.
So
so it'd be interesting to see like what are the insulating properties, as thermal insulating properties too. But actually, if you can build your little super cool.
Well, and think about physical damage when a spaceship gets knocked around by micrometeorites or whatever, and everything's cold and brittle. Your electronics can get damaged.
Yeah, I don't.
A lot better.
That application for the space stuff to me is like, to me that seems like. You could use it in space, like and you could use electric heat. I mean, to me it seems overkill and probably not the most useful application. I don't know. I know nothing, but I'm just saying that like those things usually read to me like and we'll use it in space because you can get a NASA grant to do this. I get this, but your real application is going to be something like creating systems for doing. Think about like the colder a system gets, the more things lock up and the more prone to vibrations they can be because of if your material gets too stiff, then every vibration passes through. So a lot, some forms of optical sensing, things like this could be very, very useful.
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to get at, but in space. But it sounds like you don't want to talk about
well, you were talking about insulating in space, which to me, like a skin or whatever, like sure.
Well,
okay.
No, I mean insulating sensitive parts so that the rest of the ship can vibrate and it wouldn't it would be insulated from those vibrations.
Yeah, I guess sensitive. I'm looking at it. You're still. Okay. I'm just saying, like, because I'm talking mediums where you're actually using your helium or something to cool something down. In space, your thermal variance isn't going to be enough. Where I think you'd want to use this. Your thermal variance wouldn't be, to my knowledge, necessitate something like this.
I don't know. Like I could picture certain probes this being ideal for, where it's like if you don't. I assume probes need to be at certain temperatures in order for the electronics to function. But if you were able to lower that functional temperature, possibly with something like this.
Your problem with probes is actually heat dissipation. I mean, that you have to build radiators and stuff to get rid of heat because whatever your power source or whatever it is, it starts to build up heat. That's the problem with probes is overheating. You build vents and stuff on these things because trying to radiate it away.
I wonder if you would be able to use this as some sort of soft body construction compared to like a rigid body sort of steel. Like if there was some machine device, say, and it needed to be in orbit, but it didn't need like propellers or propulsion, right? I wonder if you could have like just put all the machinery in a glob of this and then just send it up. I wonder if that would be something that would be lighter to load onto payloads, or I don't know, easier to come down to Earth.
Again, the problem in space is heat buildup with anything that has its electrical or anything that's doing like that, your power cords. That tends to be the problem, is heat buildup, not are things going to freeze? It's like, no, like these things, because of whatever their power sources tend to be, it's like your computer fan or whatever. You need to get in our environment. We have air, we use that, but still we have to use fans to get it by. It's like, if you want to build a supercomputing facility, the worst place to build it would be space. The best place would be under the ocean, where you have all this water you could, push through there, because trying to do heat dissipation. But okay. I'm sure they're smarter minds than I figured out, what those things are. But that's just, my armchair. Well, here's a problem in space, They literally, like, if you look at, like, was it the Vesta probes or whatever, they have, like, these cantilevered vents that open up literally for heat dissipation. So when the thing gets too hot inside of it, they open this thing up. And you're like I'm like, how? What's venting? Like, there's not even really any gas in there. And they're like, they knew what they're doing. I didn't. I'm like, okay.
Crazy.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It could be one of these things that nothing ever happens with it too. You're like, hey, it's a cool thing. And then, it's like you hear like battery technology, like, oh, we got a new battery technology. Everybody's like, oh, yay. And then like, yeah, we can't make it at scale, but, exciting. So.
Though apparently the graphene from this article also performs well at high heat, up to 1,000 degrees centigrade. So could also be something.
Yeah, I'm sure a materials engineer or somebody like this could explain something that would be like cool, but I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is we need your support. We need your help. We need you to go to patreon.com/weirdthings.
That's right.
Yeah, man. Patreon.com/weirdthings. You get your very own RSS feed. That's where you can listen to both the show and its partner podcast, After Things, all in one fell swoop. It's awesome. Also, you will get the smug satisfaction of knowing that you're better than everybody else.
That's right.
Yeah. Very, very, very much appreciated. Hey, I need 2 cops.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Cop time.
Oh, there we go. On goes the sunglasses.
Sunglass cop. I got cop 1, cop 2.
Oh, man, I'm just a pencil pusher from the 3rd district. What am I doing here?
Get up, kid. You're going in the car today.
Yeah.
All right, you just got the trainee, Bri. I just came to the cop place to do computer work. Sorry, kid. You're on the beat with Bryce.
Yeah. All right.
Brick, the brick we call him.
What's the case, Chief? Brick.
We got somebody's sitting in a house sitter. They're reporting some strange sounds coming from the other side of the house. They think there's a burglar.
Well,
I know this.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Brick.
Hey, kid.
Here's
a train. This is your training case.
Oh, okay. Well,
Here, lay down the details, Chief.
Well, we've got a house and a house sitter, and they're hearing some sounds on the other side of the house. They think there's a burglar. I don't know how more explicit I need to be. I need to send a couple cops there to go investigate.
All right.
Right.
Rookie.
Well, I mean,
what would you do?
We show up. I'm going to kick in the door. And I'd be all like, a police officer entering. I look over my shoulder for approval or disapproval of how I'm doing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then I'm like, I'm super armed and a legitimate cop.
Goes without saying. Okay.
Also, there's a very nice desktop computer you have. Is that a doghouse?
We should probably
system?
find the victim.
Look, we all have our expertise, all right? Is anybody home?
Oh, well, the house sitter's standing outside. She's like, I'm back here.
Okay,
You
all right.
just by me.
I run back and I say,
Doors open, kid.
house sitter. What's your name, house sitter?
My name, I'm House Sitter Joe.
Okay, House Sitter Joe. Can you describe the sound that you were hearing?
Okay, it's Joe House Sitter. Okay, but it just sounded better to say House Sitter
Of the
Joe.
Connecticut house sitter?
wait. What kind of sound you hear?
I heard kind of a shuffling sound.
Okay. Well, I mean,
So it could be LMFAO.
It was like, okay, well, there's something. We'll talk about Occam's razor. Okay. I don't know that we have to get unnecessarily.
You know that one guy was his uncle? All right.
Okay, so like in a room in the other room or
Where
like
in the house are you
walls?
hearing this from?
The other side of the house. I didn't investigate it because I'm not a cop guy.
All right. Here,
Okay.
I'm gonna pull out my piece and I'm gonna come in. I was like, officer coming in armed and hot. I'm a loose cannon. I'm a race car in the red.
Oh.
And but also, I probably shouldn't have announced that.
More metaphors.
Yeah. So I'm like, does anybody respond? Does anyone say, "Oh, it's me"?
Nothing. Steely cold silence.
Do we even hear the shuffling?
You hear something like maybe moving around or bouncing some tables or moving or.
All right, I'm gonna walk over. I'm gonna knock on the door to knock.
Nothing.
Yeah, I was like, okay. Oh, you know what? Here, I'm gonna go out, go around the house. I'm gonna
Okay.
see if I can peek in the window. Can I see anything in the window?
No, we are in
You
the
see
house.
nothing, Brian.
Dang it. Okay. Well, all right. Then I go back to the door.
Good
I'm
cardio,
gonna
yeah.
crack open the door just a little bit, see if I hear anything better.
You hear maybe you hear like a chair move.
Ooh.
Okay. Now, I turn to Brick and I say, Brick,
Yeah.
listen up. I may be a real greenhorn here.
That's right.
But it occurs to me that things other than criminals can make sounds. possibly even animals.
Oh,
So
animal criminals.
certainly trespassing because I assume it's an uninvited guest. So
Bryce, Brick opens up his jacket. He wears a trench coat, by the way, and you see all of it in handcuffs. He's got like what look like little thumb cuffs, but the little cat handcuffs. I've got cat handcuffs. I've got monkey handcuffs. I got schnauzer handcuffs. If
Big
it's an animal.
dog, little dog, medium dog handcuffs. I've got them all.
Tarantula handcuffs, and it's like 8 shackles.
Those ones are expensive. That's a lot of links.
all right, so I announce I'm gonna fire a warning shot, and I crack open the door.
Okay,
I crack open the door just enough to stick the gun out and shoot up into the air, and then I look to Brick for approval.
And I'm just.
You're saying, "Oh no, oh that's not how we cop."
Don't fire blindly into a house.
Okay, all right. It's like TIL. It's fine.
Are the lights on? Are the lights on?
I literally see you can that night the Bri, the junior cop, goes on Reddit. Today I learned as a cop.
Okay, then I crack open the door again. I'm like, sorry about that. It's my first day, and I listen to see if they're in his response.
No, it's just steely silence.
All right. I crack open the door wide enough to poke my head out. Do I immediately see any human-sized figures in there?
No, Brian, nothing.
Huh. Okay, I walk. I step inside.
Okay.
And it's like
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You step inside like an amateur. You don't barrel roll inside of there. You don't backflip inside of there. You don't do like the risk. You don't take off your shoes.
you don't do
the
risky
risky
I
business
would do
side
any
there
of
with your
those.
guns are on.
I would do any of those if I'm increasingly convinced that this is an animal in there, and I'm afraid
It's not
kicking
gonna
the
get the
door
reference.
open wide. Like, number one, I won't get the reference, but number two, what I don't want is him the animal to go running out the door. So it's like that's why I got to do the creak open, slide my body through, and then close the
All
door.
right. Okay.
But right before the door closes, the last thing Brick sees is me giving a thumbs up gesture as I close the door.
I uneasily return the thumbs up.
While shaking your head.
Okay, well.
And then so now so I'm looking at what kind of room am I in?
Nice living room. Looks almost exactly like your first floor.
Okay, great. So all right, so
Eerily like your first floor.
I'm gonna I'm gonna lean.
Wait, it's your house.
Oh dear. I'm gonna lean down and kind of look under the table to see if there's something about dog sized running around in this room.
You lean down, and the next thing you know, it comes right at you.
Okay, I immediately look for my snake repellent.
Doesn't work.
Oh no! I go to my other holster and I shoot spider repellent.
Doesn't help.
Oh no!
Oh no!
And then I look and I clench my fists in rage as I realize those are the only two repellents I thought to take with me because I couldn't possibly conceive of needing anything else.
Cut back outside. Opposite Brick is like, Right, what is it? What did you see?
It keeps coming towards you, and then boop, the Roomba hits you on the nose.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, I believe it got trapped. The real Roomba burglar story is that it got trapped in a bathroom, and it just, I guess, kept hitting the walls and the doors, and the occupant just was super scared, and it was late at night, and they didn't know what to do.
You know what? Bonnie sent me an article. It was one of those old, like, Fabulous House of the Future articles. I want to say from, like, 1960s or 1950s, but they had a proto Roomba in there.
Oh,
And,
yeah?
Yeah, I don't know if they actually, it was an artist rendition.
We're
Oh my
watching
gosh, we have
cops
video.
Go into the house.
Hey man, this is exactly how I looked in this
pretty
scenario.
much, yeah.
By the way,
No, they brought a dog in. Apparently, the dispatch call that they were showing the caption for earlier said that the bathroom door was locked. So there might have been some sort of misfunction of the door for it to lock, or who knows. So apparently they kept giving warnings and shouting through the door, and eventually they broke
It's
in.
like we're watching video of 3 cops. I understand the cops handle this the way they needed to.
Right.
They've got a dog. They've got guns drawn because you don't know there's some meth head in there, whatever, some meth head podcaster from Weird Things just
Sure.
himself in there, And then the police, and the dog is not Dog's like already knows there's nothing in there.
Dog's
the
like,
dog's chilled. Like,
do I get to bite it? No.
yeah.
Oh.
And now we're seeing the body cams. We see them look, and then their showers, and then let's see if they back off, and then
you can't see it. Oh, you can just barely see it, but yeah.
just, would you be ever more embarrassed that there wasn't, some guy with a gun in your bathroom? That it's like I'd rather that than the Roomba.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the house sitting is an important clue because you know, if you're there and nobody's come in or whatever, and then all of a sudden you hear what sounds like deliberate, and they aren't deliberate actions; they're just deliberate actions of a robot AI.
Yeah.
You know. Wow. Yeah. No, that's not bad.
I'll let you read the comment in the chat room right there. The last one down.
Was the Roomba arrested and charged with battery? Wah, wah.
Oh man.
Thank you, Doug the Coder.
Thank you, Doug. Man.
So this was a story that came out a couple weeks ago, and it's one of the things you see these things like, is this a new thing, or is it somebody covering an old thing and then saying, oh, it's new, or somebody Japanese and Russian scientists say they've awakened cells from a woolly mammoth.
What does awaken mean? I mean, I know cells are living organisms, I guess.
Well, they're but some cells can go dormant.
Okay.
And for example, you ever notice that? I believe there are some fish that can go like dormant in dry areas for very long times.
Okay.
Or eggs. You know, think
Sure.
of like brine shrimp, basically.
Okay.
is what I'm
Okay.
imagining.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because it's like
Sea
they
monkeys.
could go for seemingly ever with no nutrition or sustenance, and there's no activity, and then
Until
they
get
awaken.
reactivated.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So wow.
That must be a big tank for that woolly mammoth.
So what apparently was they took a nuclei from a mammoth cell.
Yeah.
Wait.
Sorry, you might have not heard it over Skype. We were talking about sea monkeys and getting activated, but we were talking about mammoth. And Bryce goes, "Probably a big tank, I guess." And then I just pictured all those swimming mammoths.
I wonder if we could make that breed. They took the this case they took the nuclei, the middle of the little cell there, the genetic material, and they put it in, I guess, in a mouse cell, and like inside of a mouse egg, and actually took like a mouse egg, and they tried to like they do, like to try to transfer nuclear material in there and see if you can genetic material in there and try to see if it divides. Mm-hmm. They say the cell like started up, but then it sort of failed before like doing division, because I think probably was a bit damaged. But it's exciting because one is, because we can make program, we can actually just, if we have the code, we can just use a sequencer to make us the big long strand. And you could, like in Jurassic Park, we're like, we plugged in things from other species here. Well, we could, whatever, you might take we'll take an elephant and whatever's missing there. But that's what's kind of exciting, is the idea that we might be close. We might be really, really close to taking something like a mammoth and then getting it to boot up inside of cells and then make
That's
it work.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is way crazy.
Now, what do you think that the long-term goal is? Like, say they, successfully reactivate these cells
On the table at Outback Steakhouse.
This was, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago, there was some talk in scientific journals talking about the fact that North America is one of the few places that has no top-tier megafauna, because we hunted the woolly mammoth to extinction. And there was talk about like, well, what should we do? Should we import elephants and let them run around wild and let them, fill that niche? So it could be, you could make an environmentalist case that the ecosystem of North America is currently broken, and the only way to restore it is to perform these radical clonings.
Wow.
So there, in the paper, the claim was sort of made. They're showing like this shows the problem, which is trying to use normal, like nuclear transfer into a cell to get it to boot up. Because they're saying like it's going to be too damaged. It's not going to work. You're not going to just be able to pull the material out of a mammoth. cell that you found and then put it in there, because the degradation, even all the 2% or 3% is going to be too significant. But like we just said, like, yeah, okay, we get that. Well, let's just jump ahead to the next tech, which is where we just take the sequence and we add in what's missing and just build a new strand. So
wow.
and it's leading to like if we could take large parts of Yellowstone or something like that. And
I mean, how wild that. I mean, it's not Jurassic Park, but damned if it isn't close. Like,
right.
I'd love to. What was it? Maybe 100,000 years ago? Is that when we hunted him to extinction?
This says the remains that they used are 28,000 years old.
28,000.
In
wow.
North America, it was 20,000 years ago or something.
No, I guess humanity is around 100,000 years old. Is that right? Homo sapiens, give or take. Again,
It's fuzzy.
Who's to say what makes a human?
But to what you were saying?
I mean, just it would be similar to that experience. You'd probably have to educate me about some of the other, like your saber-toothed cats and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But like, not dinosaurs, but I would pay to go to
a woolly mammoth park.
To Mammoth Park.
Huh.
Yeah,
to travel back 25,000 years ago.
Yeah.
You start looking up like what was like a great place is you go to like the La Brea Tar Pits in LA and you see, hey, here are all the things that were here, and you're like, I didn't know that. We had those. Those are cool. We had those, and you get like things like the short-faced bear, and cave sloths and giant sloths. We don't think about the giant sloth.
That is one of my very earliest memories. I must have been 4 years old, but I remember
riding
going
your pet giant sloth, Brian,
to the going to the La Brea Tar Pit, and I remember being horrified because one of the interactive exhibits they had was they had a tank of tar, and they had one lever that was labeled arm, the other labeled leg, and you got to grab and feel. Just how it
how trapping it is.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's
I just got goosebumps thinking about that.
They have like if you go there, they have outside. They show you where like the lake tar lake sort of thing is. They show like I think they have like a couple of replica like mastodons there or mammoths there, and like you have like a baby or somebody stuck there, and the other ones are just watching, going, "Oh, sorry."
Yeah. Like, say goodbye to Gary. So long, Gary.
Last time I don't ask for directions.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah, that would be neat. And so obviously, the researchers said, yeah, this way won't necessarily work, but well, there are other ways. Life will find a way.
Capitalism will find a way.
Meanwhile, like I remember was it sitting in a discussion, and the subject of bringing back animals, like extinct animals, and it was with Jack Horner, who's the paleontologist who's been involved in a project to sort of take bird DNA and try to revert it into sort of dinosaur form. And I remember somebody's brought up a thing like, why don't you just start with a cassowary? And I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what a cassowary was, right?
Oh,
and I'm like, well, right? What's that?
I
Now I looked it up. I'm like, holy cow, these things are terrifying. And so they're not quite, they don't get as much attention as emu or ostriches because they're not as big, but they're like pretty.
Hey, I'll bite. What is a cassowary?
Oh, you don't know? See, I feel like I feel like every like year or two, cassowaries like have a moment in like have their 15 minutes. But cassowaries are one of the most dangerous like land birds ever.
Whoa.
They have like 4-inch spikes on their heels, right?
Oh, yeah.
They have spikes. They have a huge horn.
You've seen them.
Yeah. Let's see. We've got images.
So, that was, Horner's like, yeah, why not start with something that's already pretty close to a T-Rex? I mean, to a velociraptor or whatever.
Yeah.
So somebody was just murdered by one. Like they had some person who raised them. They just tripped, like last week. I guess they tripped or fell or whatever, and the thing's like,
whoa,
yeah. They are.
You'll never guess what state it happened in.
But they're super aggressive birds. A few years ago, I had the chance to film a cassowary. They had them at the zoo. It wasn't on display, but I think they were like rehabilitating it or something, and. They did not even let me in the pen. They had to like let me into the neighboring pen to shoot through the chain link because they're
just that
ruthless. Yeah.
Oof. Well, that seems like the perfect selection to breed dinosaur out of.
the thing is that we talk about like what we think mammoths and stuff are cool because like they're like fuzzy elephants, and that'd be cool. Saber-tooth tiger, it's kind of like a tiger. And it's called a smilodon, which sounds friendly, But then it's like let's think about all the avian fauna, like the terror birds and the things that like, the dinosaurs are gone, but here are these things that are even more scary that probably ate people,
Yeah.
Speaking of people, you hear about the discovery, I think it was in the Philippines.
They discovered people? What?
Part of the world. New species.
Dateline 2019. Location
And-
Philippines.
Humans have been
Like,
discovered.
you could get a degree in science.
So, researchers find evidence of new human species. I think this is it. Fossil bones and teeth of a previously unknown human species in northern Philippines.
Wow. So other than sapiens, I guess they're probably Homo luzonensis.
Luzonensis after the island of Luzon, where the discovery is made. Wow.
So, for some of our audience, you ask like, well, how do we know it's different? And like, well, you don't know, but the biggest telling thing is usually the teeth, because you look at the signs of the teeth and you see like, well, this is clearly like a Neanderthal molar or very similar to that. Yet this looks like an older Homo erectus, incisor or whatever. Or this shape is something we haven't seen. So teeth tell you a lot because teeth change, but not as quickly as other features, and often the only thing that's left. And they tell you a lot about diet and whatever. And you don't find in humans, we don't find chimpanzee incisors. You don't find those things, and that's how you're finding a different species. Is it's like it's kind of like this, but a little bit different or whatever. So they found what may be yet another species, and you look at that. What's the time frame there?
This article from VOA News says researchers said tests shows that two of the fossil pieces were between 50 and 67,000 years old.
So
Wow.
50,000 years ago is a magical time period because you had Homo sapiens, you'd argue, were us. You had Neanderthals. You had Denisovians. I can never pronounce the term. You had probably what was like Homo florenzi, the what maybe the Hobbit people there. There's probably Homo nadeli, which is the one in South Africa. They found deep inside that cave there. You had like red deer people or red deer cave people, which is another one here. Now you've got this group, and you start, it's like there's probably like a dozen different hominid species that are like as different as the people lived in Middle Earth were alive, which means there's probably 2 or 3 times as many that were around.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. Because you have to think there's going to be a bias that we're not going to find them very, very easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. A stat that I throw out a lot because it's helpful is up until like maybe 2 decades ago, you could fit every single chimpanzee fossil that we had in a shoebox.
What?
Wow.
I was waiting for
chimpanzees-
like a closet or a 1-story house,
A studio
a
apartment.
shoebox.
Wow, jeez.
Now we've found more since then, but remember, because chimpanzees are in these environments where fossilization almost never occurs. Your bones get dragged off, get whatever. Bones aren't fossils. They start as bones, but like, and that's the thing. And that was the thing. Like, if you're thinking about that, I was like, whoa, like, we have to put together the evolutionary history of these things from such small pieces because most things don't fossilize.
Yeah.
So particularly like in the cradle of human civilization or human evolution, that marshy, wet area.
Apparently, this discovery was only 3,000 kilometers from the Homo florensis.
Florensis,
the Hobbits discovery.
Yeah.
Only 3,000 kilometers. Wow.
And it's that you're going to probably find a lot more because what you had is, if you look at where the water level was there before, it was much lower, so people could walk to a lot of places, but then you might get periods of isolation, so you're going to get these, different groups and stuff that start to develop on their own. And
You get a bit of that Galapagos finches with all the specialization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's exciting. It's just exciting because it's like, we're trying to get past the whole, here's monkeys, and then here's people walking upright this line, and it's just that the idea of the bush, which I think, Brian, you talked about in the book Sapiens, I think goes a lot into that, right?
Yeah, it was specifically about how unusual sapiens are in that we're the only one that wiped out all our cousins and just we're the only of our kind. It would be like German shepherds just deciding that they needed to be the only type of dog.
I would believe German shepherds thinking that too.
Yeah, but but a lot of it too is like there are a lot of instances where we found ones where it didn't look like maybe humans wiped them out, or it was just that only one survived.
Yeah, the other one was just sort of bred out of existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, or just I mean, most 99.9 species go extinct. So but yeah, and then we sent some of them off to heaven, which time to go. Yeah. Hey, want to do picks?
Yeah, man, I just finished a book that I enjoyed. It was very simple, very short, and an easy read. It's an economist walks into a brothel, and it's about the managing the ways people manage risk who are not economists in various high-risk endeavors, including the legal prostitution, including big wave riders. You've got it's interesting because there are external factors, and she gives it's a good way to get definitions of a lot of economics talk. Like, okay, when they're doing this is a hedge. The reason that the sex workers go to a brothel and give up 50% of all the money they make to the brothel is because it is a hedge against the externalities associated with illegal work, including disease and danger to themselves. And, exactly.
Yeah.
But another factor is you would think, for example, when it comes to big wave riding, that a new type of suit that would detect that you are underwater too long, or and then inflate and take care of you, kind of like a parachute, basically, would be a good thing. Except it creates the negative externality of attracting a lot of unqualified swimmers to big waves because you have equipment for it now.
Even bigger risks than
exactly.
we do
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And so they talk about the guy who was first to figure out that that jet skis were pretty useful for saving lives, and that eventually, like, they full on would stop tournaments while the dude ate a sandwich because nobody wanted to go out without this lifeguard ready with his jet ski.
Wow.
It's a fun, easy read. I think it's only like 6 hours long on audiobook.
There you go. An
But I dig
economist walks into a brothel. I have a pick. I have an update. I think I talked about this on this show before, but I have been going back and watching Lost, and I'm now on season 4. This
wow.
is the flash forward season.
Yeah.
I am enjoying it, but it's starting to get to be that thing with dramas, especially where I think Lost was resistant against this because there are so many people on the cast, but it's starting to be the thing of like it's just kind of reshuffling people a little bit.
Right.
There are some new vectors and there's more mystery than drama, but it's starting to be like, okay, yeah, you're doing this thing. But I am really enjoying this thing. I know everyone told me that season 1 they only made 1 season of the show, or they only made 2 seasons of the show because they don't like the later seasons or whatever. But I am genuinely enjoying how crazy the show is.
I'm really glad that you're seeing it with
stuff.
fresh eyes,
Yeah.
because I do think the negative rap Lost has is unwarranted. I think it's exclusively from the difference of watching it week after week versus a binging experience.
Now there are things that I think plot wise it's fine. I do think that there's just a lot of cases of just bad writing, just bad execution of writing in a lot of cases. Some weird, very direct expository stuff. But I'm digging this.
Some like info dump moments.
Or even just like direct emotional response, like I'm mad at you, like some real like amateur writing.
Somebody marches into the room, says, "I'm this character, and I'm motivated by this." Like in Prometheus, when the geologist goes, "I'm a geologist. I love effing rocks."
So stuff like that. But I am interested in the mystery. It has me hooked. It doesn't. The thing I was super worried about in season 1 and going into season 2 was like, oh, they're just going to keep putting weird stuff in front of me, and at the end it's going to kind of fizzle. But it's getting closer now to there being more answers to stuff where I'm like, okay, there is something going on. There will be at least something to read into at the end of this, even if it's not direct, like here's what the island really is, or whatever. So I'm enjoying it, and that's on Hulu now. It used to be on Netflix recently, but Lost is on Hulu now. So Lost.
My pick is a podcast called How I Built This. I believe it's an NPR podcast, and they interview people like James Dyson, the guy that made the Dyson vacuum cleaner, and other people like that, and how the idea came about, how they built this, and it's a really good just kind of overview of that. Yeah, it's hosted by Guy Raz. And a lot. I mean, I'm just, it's neat. Like, like I knew nothing about Dyson. I've got a book by him that I never read. Like I bought the book, but apparently you have to read it. And so it was just neat. And like a story about like, do you know where the idea for the Dyson vacuum cleaner came from?
Well, according to the ads, they remind you that filters get clogged and things lose suction.
Right.
But where it came from, where did it come from? I didn't know.
Oh,
I had no
know.
idea.
I don't know.
I'm like, this British guy's like, oh, I've got a better idea for a vacuum cleaner, and then he has it. He'd built. Ever seen those wheelbarrows with a giant ball like wheel up front?
Yeah.
He invented that.
Oh, right on.
So he had a factory to make this, and they had to paint paint the frame for it. And they used like electrostatic. You had to collect you had a vacuum to sort of suck up the paint, but it wasn't very efficient. He's like, "What's the most efficient vacuum?" He's like, "I asked some smart people, what's the most efficient one?" They said, "Oh, a cyclone is like they use in sawmills." And he's like, "So I climbed the fence in one night and snuck into a sawmill, and I saw this 30-foot tall cyclone." And he said, "Okay." And we went and we made one for the factory. There was a 30-foot tall one to collect all the paint or whatever like this. But then I went home and thought this would make a great vacuum cleaner. He made like 5,000 prototypes.
Wow.
Of this thing out of cardboard and stuff. And then he took it to the people the investors who own his factories. Let's make a vacuum cleaner. Like, you're dumb. Nobody needs a new vacuum cleaner. And so he left and.
Well, now like it's been knocked off, and people are imitating that technology for much cheaper. But
yeah,
wow.
It's just a neat. You're like, I didn't know, and like I love that. I'm like, wow, I just love. So I climbed a fence and snuck into a sawmill, like one does.
I'm scrolling through some of their other guests. There's some interesting like George Zimmer from Men's Warehouse.
Yeah.
Compact
You're
computers.
gonna love the way you look.
Squarespace, someone from Squarespace.
Holy
That
cow,
was good.
Anthony! I met Anthony at the time that
Castellina.
Squarespace was just launching. We were part of like their very first few months of ads with Scam School back in the day. Wow, that's awesome! Anthony digs magic.
Oh, very
So
cool.
they talked to him, and they're like, he started off because his friends were lamenting, like, yeah, it's not easy to make a website. And he's like, because he made one for himself that was really like, I'm like, I can make it so other people could make it. So he started like out of his dorm room with the first version of Squarespace, and the other people use it. And he's running this business, a nice little business. His parents are like, yeah, but what are you going to do when you graduate? He did that, says the narrator. So anyhow, How I Built This, enjoying it. A lot of great little stories in there about stuff I just took for granted. No idea. So
Very cool.
cool. It's been weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure has.
Alrighty. We'll take a minute here if you guys need a break.
Yeah. Super.
All right, we're back.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, JC Calhoun was mentioning the title sequence for Lost, and I.
Did you know that story?
Oh yeah, I knew because we've talked about it somewhere before.
Okay.
And so I did know that J.J. Abrams had made it, and like they never fixed that glitch of it.
Which is so funny to me. Like
Yeah.
I kept thinking like any day now they're gonna, and this is before I had heard that JJ had made it
Yeah.
himself.
Apparently, the guy who created Lost, he was like an executive at ABC,
Yeah.
and he got fired because the pilot for Lost is like $14 million.
What? And then meanwhile it ended up being
Being a big deal, yeah. But apparently, yeah, he got fired for greenlighting the show, and he made them keep the name Lost because I think they wanted to call it like Missing or Searching or something like that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's like, no, it's going to be called Lost. That's my stipulations. A weird development cycle for that show
yeah.
because it wasn't originally. Or, I mean, it was always JJ and Lindelof, but ABC just like pulled them out.
I thought Lindelof came in the latter seasons.
No, he was there.
He was there from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was like ABC who put them together. You know,
Yeah.
super weird.
It's crazy.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So, hi everybody. how's everyone doing? I'm playing this new game. I'm playing a new phone game. Because I haven't like given myself time to play like a non-phone game in the past like month. So I've been playing. I don't know if you know Kairosoft. They make all those like different types of simulator games. So like they made the Game Dev Story, about making video games, and so I was going through their catalog because they've made a bunch of games since then, and the one I'm stuck on now is actually I think I might have played a version of this a while ago, but it's Cafeteria Nipponica, and so you see you running a restaurant and a chain of restaurants. But I'm digging it. It's one of their simpler games. Sometimes their games can be like a little too kind of caught up in themselves. Like there's one about like a ramen restaurant. You make a ramen restaurant. You make all these ramen dishes, and you kind of have to know all that stuff. I don't know all that stuff, so that makes it a little difficult. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm playing lately. Otherwise, I've been playing Work Time Fun on my Switch. Just one of the dumbest games ever made, where you're like doing these awful part-time jobs. But I don't know. There's something about it. There's something about it just being this awful little game that I like. I need to find a new game. I was thinking about Red Dead, or what was there's something else. Yeah, I was considering Red Dead, but I feel like they're gonna make a PC port in the next 12 months, and I got caught with this last generation with Grand Theft Auto 5, where I got it on PS3 and then I bought it on PS4, and then I think someone bought it for me on PC. But it's I don't want to get caught in like playing the same game over and over again, especially because I don't even think I'm gonna like Red Dead Redemption very much. What else? Oh, I started watching Special on Netflix. This is a like short form single camera sitcom about it's like autobiographical about a young gay man in LA who has a mild case of cerebral palsy, but then he gets in a minor car accident, and he uses that as like the reason why he's disabled, and is telling people that's why he's kind of got a limp and has all these muscular limitations because of a car accident, not because he has cerebral palsy. But it's super weird because it's like based off of his own autobiography that he wrote about that experience, and so he's written and starred this show. And I don't know how much it feels like a goof. It feels like it's supposed to be like that Maria Bamford show, Lady Dynamite, which is like super over the top and everything's hyperbolic, but then also it kind of undersells the like body positivity and like handicap positivity messages of the show. I don't know. You watch anything lately, Andrew?
No, but that sounds fascinating though, because like that's one of
Sure.
those things where you go, hey, what do I take for granted today? Like what's a difficulty in my life? And then you look at somebody dealing with that and creating and thriving, and that's just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the story makes me want to read his book. I just watching some of the show just didn't feel, because they have to like fictionalize parts of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
So he was writing for BuzzFeed at the time, and that's how he got his break, is writing about this car accident. But you can't have it be BuzzFeed. It's got to be egg yolk, or egg woke, something like that. But it's like a BuzzFeed fill-in, and so the boss is like kind of goofy, and
Right.
and so that stuff feels it's hard to. I kind of want to relate with his story, and I think I'd rather read the book. If I can be honest.
There's times where the Hollywood machine can make something better, and there's times where the Hollywood machine makes things dumber.
Yeah.
And often one more than the other. I just sent you guys an article that I don't expect you to read, but if you want to take a look at it,
I did read this. I think you sent it before.
You sent it to us a few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I did see a good amount of this.
Okay, cool. Because the concept. Yeah, do you want to talk about this? Because
sure. It's
if you have a specific angle on it, is the only thing.
I want to get into like I don't know if it's true or not, but just the idea of somebody using technology and how thinking so outside the box to solve things.
Actually, I also think I have a social media angle on this also.
Cool.
I'm getting it out of my system.
Okay.
I did not care for the I did not care for the implication that this was an easy thing to do or a worthy thing to do for this goal.
For this
like
article.
what he did was develop a CRM software.
Sure.
It's like dude, these systems take.
This is just fuck Jerry.
I mean, yeah, it's like
100%. I read this and then I was on Hacker News. I'm like, because he submitted it there. I want to comment, but I feel like I have to comment, one, on the ethics of this, two, the amount of effort that went into this for what I think is ultimately a trivial sort of thing that you could have just, hey, sell your services for a couple weeks, problem solved. But I was more amazed at how, I don't know. We'll talk about it. I was just
okay.
I was
then maybe it does belong in there.
maybe this is good.
I guess specifically, I had a beef with the article, not with what he did or that stuff.
Oh,
So-
interesting.
Well,
Okay,
I mean, just the tone of the article is like, and then I just did this.
I gotcha.
Oh well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. This is. It's a Hacker News. Let me show you how clever I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Piece. Which, you get those all the time, and sometimes you're like, oh shit, no, this is clever. You're like,
Notoriously charismatic hackers.
but also,
They're hackers of the heart.
Oh.
We live in a world where every day people are telling us, oh, that's cool, that's really neat what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do that.
Did you guys like my latest Instagram photo, by the way? I don't know what it is. I have no idea what it is.
I'm not finding myself going back on Instagram. It's not making its way into my habits.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to, or if I want to change it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I've like on Twitter and stuff. I like it, but I just don't. I've been busy.
All right, you ready to do this?
Ready?
Yep.
All right, then take it away in 3. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the After Things podcast. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Mr. Bryce Castillo.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Brian Brushwood.
Yo, the lady who.
And that's it.
And he's, for audio listeners, he's actually wearing lederhosen. It's really
That's right.
awesome.
It is fetching on you, Brian.
Wait, thank you.
You can wear a shirt with those two, Brian. Just so you know. So I sent the gentleman an article a couple weeks back because I read it and I had a lot of thoughts. But I'm like, there's something very interesting here. But I'm also like, I want to get their take on it because I don't have a lot of the core part of it. I thought was fascinating. And so the headline was, I found this on Hacker News. The guy that submitted it there is called "How I Eat for Free in New York City Using Python, Automation, Artificial Intelligence, and Instagram." Now, it comes across as look at this really cool technical kind of thing that I do. But I will tell you guys, like I've done enough Udemy courses now to know it's not that hard. It's like I can actually say, do this course, do that course, and you could do this thing. It sounds more technical than it really is, but played as much D&D as I have, really understand human character. But it's, and what he did was it was in the dubious ethics of this. Let's be very, very clear. And I wasn't like, oh, this is a great idea, everybody should do this, but I'm like, I'll bite. I'll read this and see what this is about. And so what this guy was, he's apparently he's a programmer with a lot of spare time, and he noticed that people like on Instagram and stuff could get free stuff, could get free things, and I side note is I have a friend who works for a very large entertainment company in publicity who sends me every day. Like I got sent like last week, like this person just asked for a free, very expensive thing saying they'll post on social media, and they're kind of laugh. And I like, well, like, sometimes it works. And also I looked at that person, I typed in that person's name into Google and the first thing that came up was like a car crash. I'm like, I don't think they have a really good footprint, but anyhow. We're the first ones to say, like, doesn't hurt to ask. So what this person did was, first they had like an Instagram account, right? And they wanted to have an Instagram account with a lot of followers. So they built a bot that would do a follow you and then unfollow. And I think it's fine to follow people, to find people, but I'm not a big into just I will unfollow you once you follow me. If you follow me and we follow each other, I'll follow you.
Right.
I'll keep going. If your account goes inactive or something, that might be something different. But like, I think there's nothing wrong with like, hey, we'll follow each other and do that. But to follow and then immediately unfollow once they follow you, I don't want that reputation. And I think we agree.
Right. Oh, sure. 100%. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So he built, but he did an Instagram thing, which is kind of the thing, like, because Instagram does have a limit to how many people you can follow. But he built an Instagram bot to go follow, unfollow, to build up follows. For the content, what he did is he built an algorithm that would look for the photos that were like getting a lot of likes, photos on New York City landmarks. He built a thing about New York City landmarks. So he'd follow other Instagram accounts, and then he would take their photos, and then he would repost them. Now, he would credit them. He says he would credit them and said this photo by so-and-so, but he built a bot to get content by following other accounts and just grabbing their photos. There was no original content here. It was just a bot grabbing other people's images.
Well, and so at this point,
and apparently he says he's not doing this anymore. He's using royalty-free stock images now, apparently.
Okay. But even then, he said that that the big transformational thing was making sure to credit where this so, and that's not as bad as freebooting. I mean, it's like in a perfect world you'd want permission first, but at the very least, giving credit and if anybody said, "Hey, knock it off," then he would immediately take stuff down.
And apparently he says people were thanking him for doing it, and I guess if you are an Instagram account of a certain size and you're posting images and people are liking it, there's probably some sort of splash effect that is net positive.
Yeah, that is the remarkable thing, and maybe this is kind of the after things takeaway is it's much easier to get material for Scam Nation now that it has such a reach, because now it's like, hello, when Scam Nation Scam School was much smaller, it was like, hey, I'd like to teach a trick. And they're like, who are you? What is this? No, This sounds like trouble. Sounds like you're bringing a problem to me. But then now it's like, hey, I want to feature your trick and promote whatever you want. They're like, oh, this is not a problem. Somebody's bringing opportunity to me.
Right.
And, it's tough to be in those early stages where you want to promise opportunity, but you don't have the numbers to necessarily back it up. And so, but likewise, it seems like at this point with 25,000 followers or whatever, he's over that hump to where now the fact that it's being picked and credited and driving some amount of traffic, he's providing value, arguably, for everybody whose images he was scraping, even though he's not doing that anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So he would use images, repost images, totally automated. Right. And he had algorithms to figure out like what are the best images, what are not. Let's look at like comments, things like this, which things are more likely to get, more people comment or like or whatever.
Yeah. One of the things was like it could detect if there was text on an image. It would also check in the comments for like if it ever said link in bio, then that usually meant that it was some sort of promotional thing. And so that he would not use that image also. Some interesting like I guess semi-anthropological ways of how we use social media as a marketing tool versus a creative outlet. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting to read just to see that like how you build somebody to go through this. Then he said that he built a machine learning model, which maybe he did, to sort of figure out like what makes for a good image or whatnot to sort of predict that, but based on caption, number of likes, all this other sort of stuff, which you could do. And so anyhow, I built a system to sort of figure out like, how do you figure this out? How to do captioning? Because you can use web services to say what's in the photo, how to caption it. The goal was just to create a totally automated account. And then what he did, once he had this whole system working where he's creating captions, just generating content that was actually just taking other people's stuff and repurposing it for his purposes, what he did was, he'd have to wait. He had a whole thing to who he followed, et cetera. But the whole purpose gets down to apparently what he would do is he would send. I'm trying to figure out, like, he would send emails out to people like restaurant owners and stuff, and say, hey, I have this Instagram account, blah 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 blah, like, look for places in the New York area, and if you can give us, in exchange for a free gift card experience or whatever, we happy to, like, post or whatever, or mention this.
Yeah.
And just mass email this to all these businesses in the New York City area, and to see who responded.
Yeah, apparently this is his template. Hello, account name. My name is Chris, and I run this Instagram account. We have over follower count followers in the New York City area. Blah, blah, blah. We would love to make some sort of deal with you to sponsor your establishment. We would like to post your place, address, tag your page, recommend everyone check it out. It will stay up forever. Any number of things. In exchange, I would ask for a free experience, small gift card discount, or coupon to your place.
Which, by the way, is not a...
it's easier than, like,
normally,
give me money.
Normally the ask is for money.
Right.
But if the ask is for free merch or whatever...
Because if you give someone a discount, then there's a chance they're going to come to your place and spend money.
Yeah, and also I think they all know, depending on the type of restaurant, their actual expense is much lower than the perceived meal cost. Sure. But also they know that they're probably not going to drive a lot of traffic as a result of it. And I almost wonder how many people say, yeah, sure, have a half-price meal or something, because what you don't want is them to get mad and turn that publicity engine in the negative direction, where It's like, oh, well, these guys didn't even want to let me taste their food.
Yeah, so he says the response are positive, and again, he's self-reporting all of this, so we don't know. But I thought it was instructive because it is a great example of one person can build a system like this in there, and maybe this is not the ideal system or way to use it, but thinking outside the box or stuff. You address issues, and one of the things that came up was there was on a podcast, which I guess could be my pick again here, was called How I Built This. Is they talked to was Michael Dell, and they talked to him about one of the things he did that helped him Dell Computers grow. And the roots of this was, he talked about when he had a newspaper route when he was a kid, and he found out that you could go to, like, the city hall or whatever and find out who just got a marriage license, or who just moved into a house.
Oh, wow.
And those are the best people for selling newspapers to. Those are the ones that you'd go to. And so he'd have friends that would just go get those records, and that's who he would make his calls to. I had a friend that was an entertainer who would have people go by the Parks and Recreation office to find out who got permits to rent those kiosks, or those the little
like
parts
gazebos?
of the park. Yeah, I think gazebos or whatever for doing birthday parties or corporate events. He'd find out who rented those, and then he would just cold call them and say, "Do you have entertainment? Do you have a bounce house? Do you have a popcorn machine? Do you have these things?" And then he would just boom. That was his source generation, because there are these public records I can go use there and do this. Michael Dell talked about, like, oh yeah, we found out we could go see what the government was saying, that we need to buy X number of computers. And we would go in and we'd underbid because we knew what the exact cost would be, and we would go get, all of a sudden we're selling 1,000 computers at a pop, and that's one of the things that helped build Dell. Yeah. And
man, when I worked at Dell, there was we would get some of those government contract callers where they like it was very heartbreaking to this anarcho-libertarian, as somebody is my job is to sell a bunch of computers, and then it's like, oh well, you could do that for $100. It's a webcam. He's like, yeah, we're gonna have to spend more than that. What else you got? And it's like, well, there's a pro version for $150. They're like, would there be a benefit to buying 20 of them? And I was like, well, I guess you could give them to other people to video conference with. They're like, yeah, there you go, let's do that.
Yeah.
And then
and it's not to go into anarcho-libertarian things, but it's like, I've heard from teachers saying, oh, we have a budget, we need to spend this by the end of the year, we got to spend this, we're going to buy these stupid things, to people who work in government, like, yeah, we got to spend X amount before the end of the year. And you're like, oh geez, and businesses, like in business, you're like, oh, like, how much of the world is like this?
Yeah,
sure. Surplus spending.
We say this on tax day, but anyhow, you can use these things for other sorts of purposes and stuff. You go out there and in data collection, things like this is an amazing sort of thing. And there's the nefarious ways people use it all the time to do this, but there are positive ways, other ways to do this, and it's just sort of a very you could think about the problem you have, and one of the biggest magic retailers in the world, which I won't name, but like, I suspect when they started, they used spiders to collect email addresses from anybody on a magic forum or any place that was involved in the magic world back in a time when people were more prone to post those. Mm-hmm. And they built basically an email list by just, a spider's just a program that you put in a web page, look for email addresses, look for any link to any other web page, go to that web page. That's how Google was built. But they were collecting email addresses, and so they built. And it's not illegal when they did it, it wasn't. And so what they did, and then those are sort of ways to think about stuff.
Yeah, and also as far as the morality of this, the weird part is the novel part is that he had bots assemble it, but he started with the question, how do I get a free meal? And then step back, and the answer is, well, provide something of value besides cash. So you could do cash. That's what you normally do. Sure. What else can you provide? What are things? So then you think of a restaurant. You're like, okay, what are all the times they ever give away a meal for free that is not paid for? And it's like, well, one, reviewers, and then, social media influencers. Great. So what does it take to make a social media account that has value? We need this many followers. What is a way to get followers? Follow, unfollow, and providing content. How do you know that it's good content? Well, because you've stolen it from other people. How do you prevent them from being upset? You credit them. And so weirdly, he's built an engine that does probably provide about $30 of value to each person that gives them a free meal.
And I think, he's automated this, but I think every element of this is something you could take away as something as a means to success on social media, right? He found out you have to be posting a lot. You have to post every day. And it's not easy to post every day, which is why even if you're a person like even us, like we are a production company, so we make a thing a week, but we don't have the time to, do what this guy is doing, is going out and exploring the community, which this is New Yorkers, so there's a very large community of it. But be a part of that community, be a part of the creative element of that. Using photos, and using credits. But any business you can find similar ancillary content, right? If you are a dog washing business, anything about dogs or pets, anything about washing, any household
anything in the news about those things,
right? And then that becomes engagement on these platforms, which is looking for pages and accounts that are very active, and it gives people something to do and something to talk about and something to rally around. And so as we're trying to do more social media stuff, that's something that I'm aware of is a vulnerability of me. Is like, I don't know a lot of magic stuff. I don't know the magic community very well.
Right.
So I can't do too much with the social media stuff, but I know that that's probably the next step in our Instagram and social and Twitter stuff.
And whether that's hiring a new human being to do that work or figuring out ways to automate, because it occurs to me, like, we could set a Google News alert for the word magic and, have a funny take, because magic gets used in a lot of non-magical stories, like the magic bullet theory or whatever. It's like you're holding the deck wrong, just to have commentary on all this.
There was an episode of Veep. This week's episode of Veep had a magician candidate in the presidential running, and it was
I knew a guy
very funny bit.
that used to do Google News alerts for anything magic related and follow it and write about it. I don't know what happened to him.
Did he have the number one magic news site?
He's
on the number one magic podcast
episode here, but Justin can tell you all about every day having to do the.
Sure. But I mean that I'm sure that was a boon for iTrix, even in a day before algorithmic boosting of that stuff, right? iTrix was a blog, not a Facebook page.
Well, and plus also, like, how easy is that? Not that it was easy. I know that Justin put a lot of work into it, but basically, how simple is that formula of Google News alert pops up, reach out to the parties involved, ask them for comment. Now you have provided a value add to that news story. You're able to link to the original news story and have done your work, and now you have provided value.
Sure. Now, and I mean, you extrapolate this large enough, and you have BuzzFeed, right? You have any number of these, content farms, and that is a little bit of a distinction of like, well, are you trying to be journalistic? Are you trying to aggregate stuff? Are you trying to collect and spread people out to different sorts of things? And that's where stuff kind of gets messy. But that stuff, there's a tension there. Maybe,
Well,
BuzzFeed has monetary issues right now, but it's a very popular website.
I've been talking about the issues that BuzzFeed is facing for years. When you realize that their total ad revenue, and this was like 3 years ago, was like 40 million, which sounds on one hand like a lot, but on the other hand, it's not. And that's been the problem. And I've said that that's not a thing that's really going to grow, because Brian just illustrated, a vision that we may be experiencing right now or very close to, which is it's one thing to say, hey, this is trending, we'll repost this. It's another thing to generate that email that goes to you and says, hey, do you have a comment on this? And you're never even talking to a reporter. It's just a computer that says, we went to Brian Brushwood and Brian said, monkey balls, and that's, doesn't know to not repeat that, but it gives you that comment. Or, hey, hop on the phone and we'll have the Google Voice thing interview you. And we're here. We're this close to form. I mean, we already have forms of that where it's not just reposting, but it's generating new content by going to original sources and stuff. And that's something to think about. It's like, hey, is that Instagram thing you're following? We know they're bot accounts, but like, is the reporter you follow? We know that they're using it for sports scores and stuff, but. Hell, there's a lot of repetitive stuff in reporting, like you pointed out, like get a comment, get this from somebody, and no job is safe, guys. No job is safe.
Yeah, man.
Man, I can even see a value add where it's like you have the main feed for the article, and then maybe you have like a Twitter feed that claims early access to stories as they're developing, and in exchange for raw data of these computer generated news stories, they get feedback on whether or not somebody says something interesting, like a pull quote from it. And then based on that, they're able to shape the story, and they're like, oh, wow, the response on this is huge. This is one that could go big.
Yeah.
And you take that, and first I'd be like, well, who's the audience? I'm like, oh, financial journalism, things like that. You think about like, if you're, somebody who's analyzing stocks and stuff like this, if you had a financial system that such and such company said this, like, okay, the bot's going to go reach out to that person and get a statement from that person about it, and now we're going to have a clarified thing. You could follow, the first generation of tools that are going to be really impactful are going to be the ones that magnify. So one reporter could say, oh, I'm covering 20 stories, I've got bots that will do it, I read the response, say, oh yeah, that's a good comment, use this. No, they just told me to F off, we won't use that. But yeah. Future's scary.
This is going to be my pick ahead of time, but a lot of the social media stuff I pulled from a talk from, when was this? Was this year? Earlier this year, or maybe last year, that actually our friend Veronica Belmont was giving about social media. She's a project manager on Adobe Spark, which is a social media content generation machine, right? You put in your branding stuff and it spits out JPEGs and quotes and videos and stuff. But the beginning of this talk, before they really get into the actual tool of like walking through how the thing works, is a really interesting sort of exercise on like, opening your mind on what social media can do for your business in terms of not just the things that you directly make, but all of the things around you to build an audience, so that you are more than the thing that you make. You are blending into the community that you are trying to assimilate into, and taking advantage of social media in that way. So I'll have a link in the show notes, but it's a really good talk, especially just this beginning part, if that's really what you're looking for. But also their tool looks cool too. So
very cool. Yeah, it's sick to hear. Like, what if we had a robot co-host that, because like often, we're talking about things that's over our heads and stuff, and we're kind of left going, I guess, I don't know, but to be able to have a resource that could tell us.
I think that would be like a novel stunt in the short term, and it wouldn't be all that hard to do, because it could just listen and translate our discussion and figure out, especially let's say you had a news related thing, it could throw up ideas and just says, hey guys, have you thought about this take, or generate pull quotes, or it would be fun and funny at first for stuff it gets wrong, right?
Yeah.
But like think about this. What if there was? So let's assume in general we have a solid audience of people who are on our side, and what if the co-host was entirely from the audience and everybody is making their comments, and then Reddit style people are like, yeah, oh no that is a good point, and then it takes that sentence and then waits for an organic pause and then says that exact line.
Sure. Yeah, I'm like Reddit especially, it would kind of be a very perfect thing for some of the, automated or not, right? Like it pulls the news stories that its user base provides the commentary. And so, not only your natural reaction to stuff, but also like, hey, this is, the big thing people are responding to. What do you think about that?
It's so weird how powerful that social proof is, because I will, before I read, as with many articles, you get the gist of it just from the headline, and you don't need to read the article. And instead, I'm interested in what the hottest takes are on Reddit. So it's like I'll jump there and just read the first few lines and maybe scroll down and see whatever was second of the counter take usually.
Yeah, I do that with Hacker News. Like often I'll interesting, but let me go read what the top takes are, because maybe it's something I don't quite understand, and I want to hear, generally there's going to be somebody really smart there who's going to break it down a little bit. And they're like, oh, now I have a context. Now I'll go read it.
Or as a means of verifying news, right? Being like, okay, well, this is true, but also in context, this is not very actually important or whatever.
Right. They've been doing this for years. Take a look at this, and the other thing.
Sure. So something like that too. I was always surprised Reddit kind of never did any sort of content play about that.
I think Reddit is learned from the lesson of Dig, and just they're all like, not too ambitious, boys. We're just gonna ride this wave, making big changes, and it didn't go over well at the old place. That's why we got this place. Yeah.
Well, and that's the Reddit has this great crowd that self-organizes and figures stuff out. And anytime you want to have some sort of central fact checker or something like that, it's going to fail. You're always going to be scaling faster than your fact checking department can handle things.
Which by the way, we saw like during the Boston bomber massacre. It was one of the most shameful chapters in Reddit's history, where their excitement to solve the crime outpaced their responsibility or ability to fact check, and it was an awful mob disaster. It was really horrific.
And that's a great case where it's like you get a handful of people that decide, because we get back to the study of critical thinking, but it's like, you read a newspaper article, so-and-so accused of this. Somebody tells you, you hear about the person who did blank. And you're like, wait, we lost the word accused here. Accused, and people often in the regular speech, because it's like we talk about how more efficient communication is like, well, let me condense this because I assume they must have done it if they got accused. Like, maybe, but there's a large times they don't. And the Boston bomber case, it's like, let's catch the guy. Like, this is the person. Like, no, hey, this looks like this person here. And I think and it's like, that's different. And if people knew that's what you're saying, maybe they wouldn't have gleefully,
And that's going to be a weakness of algorithmic based or user voted based content. Full stop. I mean, in a world where any social network wants to promote stuff that's the most engaging, it's going to be the stuff that is the most controversial or the most counter to incite a debate. Whether or not the facts, justify debates or that much exposure, the machine doesn't know and it doesn't care.
We're starting to go into weird things territory here, but like I'm thinking about bots that, like a fact check bot. Like imagine somebody says something and immediately a fact check bot pops in and says, hey, this is an often misquoted thing. I'm a bot, but it looks like you're pushing something that's been proven no longer true. And I think, oh wow, that would really have value. But then I think about
and Reddit is lousy with bots.
Yes, there are a lot. But
did you notice you misspelled there? Did you actually notice that you're a bad bot? Like there's a thing on Reddit now where the bots will have keywords that will trigger other bots, and they will make these recursive threads, and it's a pain.
It's funny the first time you see it, and then that's it. But I think about in an age where we are increasingly valuing truth, and it becomes increasingly possible to fundamentally distort worldviews. There was somebody who was selling a get rich scheme. Similar to like The Secret, that's basically just wish for money and you'll have it. And he had this thing where it's like, come pay me $5,000 and drive around in my $150,000 Rolls Royce, and we'll mind vision scheme, and you'll become rich later.
Sounds like a steal.
Yeah, and around the time I was like, Jesus, what is happening? When you Googled this person, it would autocomplete scam, and there was a lot of upset people that really didn't like it. And then one day, suddenly all that was gone.
Sure.
Suddenly the word scam is gone. Doesn't show up as an autocomplete. Can't even find. All of his ratings went from 0.5 star on Amazon to 3.5 to 4 stars, and it was like in the space of a year. And it's like this dude shaped reality. He rewrote the truth.
I mean, there are entire firms dedicated to this emergency PR stuff, and you hear them talk about it, and it sounds very easy. You just have to flood Google or any other thing with anything else. Right?
Yeah.
And that ends up being what a lot of it is like literally flood it with all these networks of blog rolls or what have you until that stuff is erased or diffused.
But, I'll say the contrary point is that we don't know that the first version was the total. Like, maybe he had one disgruntled guy who said, I'm going to make sure this guy I'm going to build 500 web pages that scale. And that's the problem, of course, because like you go to these fact checking sites and you go, no, you shaded that. You gave this half true, but it's completely false. But because politically it's in line with where you are, you had a problem where like there was a large organization in the Southern something organization for making people aware of like racial issues and stuff, and heavily funded, extremely well funded. Maybe the largest company in the world even helped back them because they wanted to show they're right. And then you find out that like, oh, they'll say, oh, there's a rise in these incidences. And like, no, like they're taking 5 different parts of one organization and list them as 5 separate, or all these other things. They manufacture data to support their cause, and they were considered a source of truth, and they're not. And it's that, I don't know. It's frustrating because it's like, yeah, we'd like to have this thing that could say, oh no, actually, but it's like, who programs the no actually? And Facebook hasn't been able to do it. Google hasn't been able to do it because it's hard.
Social media companies, social network companies, don't have any incentive to stop any of that. They don't have an incentive to deal with objective truth. They want engagement, and that kind of goes counter to the idea of
they're trying hard. Like Facebook's trying hard now because they're the scrutiny on them. Like they work out agreements with different journalistic groups to sort of figure out to rate the truthiness of an article because they want to show that they're making an effort to do this, but they're finding out that you kind of can't, because you're basically saying, oh, well, we found this source here that said this, so therefore it's true, but yeah, that source misquoted it, or this or that, or this has context that goes beyond what we perceive. So we're doomed.
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting. Was like, I like to go to like the blog Electric, like Electric Tech, which is like a blog about like Tesla and other electrical stuff. And I agree with a lot of what they say, but a lot of stuff I think they're wrong. But anyway, I enjoy reading it. And they do a thing called Electric's Take. They'll have an article, then they'll say, here's our take on this. And I read on a Reddit forum where people are like, no, I don't like it because that's biased. And I'm like, I thought it was kind of idiotic, because it's like that writer had that bias.
Right.
They're now telling you, hey, this is my point of view on it. And it was weird. They thought that once they said, pull back the curtain, like, here's what I think is going on, that some people are upset. Like, yeah, that seems very biased. It's like, what, you didn't know that a human wrote this that had their own thoughts on this? So.
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that just more people need to be educated. Something that academia has known for years is that it's very important to recognize your own biases and the biases of the people whose work you read. And as a result, once you know that, it becomes more powerful if somebody, let's say, who skews very libertarian, writes an article with a conclusion that is uncomfortable for his thesis and says that, then to value that higher because it's something that is counter to their bias. That's the way religious scholars have had to figure out which which gospels copied from which other gospels, and which things very likely the historical Jesus did and did not do. Because like basically, if
Because
there's
you keep translating
like,
it enough, and there's enough humans involved.
right,
Yeah.
and it's like it's basically the weird stuff. Like he probably definitely cursed out a fig tree at some point because that was the most un-Jesus
Sometimes
thing
a
to do.
fig tree really has it coming, though. Sometimes
Right.
they drop a fig on your cart, and you're just trying to get to the market.
Yeah, we're doomed. All right.
I mean, look, we're just gonna morph into AI, beautiful eternal sky children.
No, they're gonna annihilate us.
You both made a pick.
Oh yeah, we did.
You know what? I'll give a lighthearted pick.
Sure.
I saw a Missing Link. It was adorable.
What is this, a film?
It's a stop motion animation movie with Zach Galifianakis as Sasquatch.
Yeah, the Sasquatch film.
Yeah. Oh, also, how did we go a whole day without talking about the SpaceX launch and
Oh
the
my
fact that
God.
for the second time they landed?
Oh,
for the first time ever,
landed
they landed all three boosters.
Yeah.
It slipped our minds.
Oops.
That's how low it ranks now on the impressiveness. Also, plane landed safely. But it was anyway. Missing Link.
Is this good? I was very skeptical at
I was
the trailer.
Too. I was too because it reminded me too much of Early Man, which was bad, and I didn't like Early Man at
sure.
all. But Missing Link was adorable and fun, and it was. I realized, like, man, there's something I'm getting here that I've not gotten in a long time. What is it? And I realized it was the representation of the English British gentleman without any chastising or putting into context like their racial imperialist empire or whatever. It was just a romanticized, Victorian era representation of adventurers clubs and the desire to see the world and all that stuff. It was great. It was positive and cheerful, and I enjoyed it.
Cool. Good for kids.
Oh yeah, great. Really enjoyed it with the kids.
Awesome.
Also, my kids did not like The Prestige because the birds died. And they were not getting past that. Even at the end, they're clearly blown away by the end, but they're all like, "Dad, but that bird, why are you showing me this garbage?"
That's funny. Yeah, forget the humans that died. Yeah.
Birds are very smart.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, my pick, I'm going to say again, is How I Built This. The podcast, I think, is really good. Really, a lot of cool episodes on there. So,
you know what's funny is I added it to my subscription thing on the recommendation of my trainer, and I have a whole bunch of episodes. I never made it over that hump to really give it a try. So I think your recommendation comes at the right time. Is there a particular episode I should start with?
yeah, like I'm a big believer in like I don't listen to every episode of a podcast. I'll just download specific episodes. So like the Squarespace one I thought was pretty good. Let me see what else was on there that I enjoyed. But
You were talking
the Dyson one.
Yeah, you were talking about the Dyson one also.
Yeah, Dyson one was good. What else I listened to?
There's a lot of big name companies here too.
What's that?
There's a lot of big name companies here too, like
Nolan Bushnell. Okay. And the reason I really emphasized Nolan Bushnell was those of you that don't know, Nolan Bushnell created a little company called Atari, and then a little thing called Chuck E. Cheese. His way of thinking, what's that?
I did not know that was the same person.
Yeah.
Well, you were born after the time, so he was sort of in a way like, for Brian, we kind of like our new Walt Disney, in a way, But he goes through like the thought process behind these things, the thought process behind it. And a lot of it involves, how do you get people to put quarters inside of a machine? And there's the evolution of Chuck E. Cheese is pretty interesting, about, it's going to be Coyote Pizza. And he found out that he didn't buy a coyote costume. It was a rat costume.
That's the only reason.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Marketing people were like, no, we need to rethink this. But I've met him. He's a super cool guy too, and he's a guy that's just like. Anyhow, I just highly recommend that just to see where did that come from, whatever. And they're small. They're like 35 minutes, whatever. So.
Cool. Very
Cool.
Yeah. So. Cool. Groovy. It's been after.
There it goes.
Disney is not a monopoly. It's not a monopoly. Big, giant.
It's certainly not opposed to lobbying efforts for protectionist legislation, but not a monopoly.
Yeah, but they don't lobby anything that's exclusive to, well, maybe, but I mean, copyrights is not exclusive to them. It just happens to conveniently, with,
Right.
like Mickey Mouse birthday. But as far as like, you can be big, and also monopolies aren't illegal by fault, by nature.
Correct. It's only when you use the monopoly to your monopoly position to crowd out other folks.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, that'll do it for us for Weird Things here. We'll be back in a few hours with Cord Killers.
Yeah.
You got any streams coming up? Or any planned? I saw you did a Periscope last week. Is that right, Andrew?
Yeah, I'll probably do one. I want to do one because I got the Thriller nominations, the Thriller Award nominations. So I might do some talk a little about that, and
Yeah. And meanwhile, big love goes out to the Zoo Warlock deck that I'm playing right now. 70% win rate. It's great.
Wow.
I made Dad Legend in like 36 hours.
What is Dad Legend?
Dad Legend is rank 5.
Very cool. All right, well, we'll be back in a few hours with Cord Killers. But until then, thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Yay.